Hey, what's up guys? Mechanicz here and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to finish up our 350 build here, get this thing all refreshed and ready to go, and also we're going to make room in our project truck to put this engine in. So then we'll have ourselves a V8 S10. So let me get after it and get this going. Well, we got the new Vortec heads installed. I also put some valve seals on the exhaust valves because these were on a crate race engine, and with that in mind, they didn't have exhaust seals on, or exhaust valve seals, only on the intake side. But being a street engine, we're going to be driving it around. We don't need the extra smoke, so we got the valve seals on there, and then we torqued them all down the spec with new bolts. And this intake is just sitting on there to keep the garbage out. I also, I keep it in the bag too. But it's just one more thing out of the way I'm not tripping on. But that's all set, and I'm waiting on, as you can see, the cam. And then I'll also take the timing chain gear off. But I got to put it back on top dead center before I take it off. That way I know where we're at. And today's adventure is going to be yanking out the 4.3. That shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Hopefully everything comes along smooth. We'll see how many bad bolts we got. Most of it we can just cut out because we're replacing the majority of everything anyways. But the transmission I built for this Corvette has been nothing but a hassle. I'll tell you, I'm still waiting on the solenoid. That monster sent me the incorrect one. I'm waiting on that still. It's been several days again. We've already waited months for all the parts to begin with, so it's just one more frustration. So sorry to my fans who are into the Corvette build. I will get to it as soon as I get all my stuff in line here. I just am getting frustrated. The whole summer's gone, and we're still waiting on parts. So hopefully I'll get it together soon, and we can rip it around and have a little fun. So anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to start on this, and then I got phase 3 starting over there, but we'll get into that once the parts for that mess come in. Well, now that we're on to this, let's take a look at it quick before I tear into it. Now the engine is starting to fail. I'm pretty positive it's very weak. It doesn't have much power at all, unfortunately. It struggles. It started getting really bad performance-wise, to the point where the engine light's coming on, it's misfiring under minor load, and just going up a hill it barely makes it. So that is got to be taken care of, and instead of fixing this little 4.3, my vote is definitely go with a nice mildly built up 350. But to make this fit easily without wasting a ton of money, all this bracketry here will directly bolt on to our 350. I'm not going to have to change it all around to 350 stuff. I'm going to use the 4.3 liter stuff and use their harness that's already here. That's going to save a ton of time and wiring mess that we don't want to deal with. It's all going to be taken care of right here. We're not addressing anything with the charging system. We're not doing anything with the power steering system. We're not doing anything different with the cooling system. None of that has to be changed. We're not going to change it. That's a lot of extra time and money we don't need to spend. So let's focus on the stuff we need to. That way this job can be done quickly. That's what it's all about. It's not a big project. It's not a $100,000 build here. This is a cheap toy just to play with and have fun. And when you look at the cost of like a UTV or even a Jeep Wrangler, I mean, the prices of those things for a junk one with a bad frame is still a couple grand. It's crazy. I mean, we'll have that into this truck, and it'll be a huge lifted truck with 35s probably, and a V8 with like 350, 400 horsepower. I mean, it's just crazy, That's why these things are so cheap and fun. So I wanted to really show that to people. But no, the moral of the story here is wiring-wise, we got to hook up the coil, and we got to bypass the fuel shut-off setup on that. I'll go over that. It's real quick. There's other guys on YouTube who have done it too. And then also we're going to get all this accessory stuff set up. And then we got to just mess with the fuel lines. We got a return line, the feed line, and we got a regulator that'll match it and make it all work. So let me start tearing into it, and I'll catch you up when I get a little more apart. Here's a quick update on where we're at with this thing. As you can see, most of it's taken apart. All we got to do is deal with this oil thing here, which we're going to throw away. I might even just unbolt it over here and throw it on top of the engine when we pull it. Bell housing bolts are really difficult. That's pretty much the only thing left to cut the exhaust, get everything out, fluids drained. Even the flex plate bolts are out. It's just getting all the bell housing bolts are really difficult because there's not much room there. So I'm going to keep fighting it and get the motor mount bolts out and the bell housing bolts and the engine's out. So I'm going to keep going. Alright, we got a quick update here. As you can see, engine is out. Started cutting the pads off. Well, at least a couple bolts anyways. I think we got 3 here. Got 1 more on that side, 2 more on this side, and the front diff needs to come out. So we're working on getting the diff out. I'm going to rip the CV axles apart and just leave the ends so that way the 4-wheel drive hubs don't fall apart. And then bolt it back together with the motor in it, get it running and driving, and make sure the engine swap part of it is good, and then we'll go on to phase 3 for the suspension to get it back to 4-wheel drive. There's our little engine there. That's the end of that. So we shouldn't be seeing that again, hopefully. And yeah, just gotta keep wrenching away and see if we can get this front diff out now. Well, it's finally time to get our engine together. We got our Lunati cam and lifter kit there. We got our comp double roller timing chain there. Got our oil pan. Got a bunch of other goodies in this box. So it's time to start wrenching and get this thing together. We got our new Lunati cam in with our comp cam's double roller timing chain. Now, when you hear that, I just wanted to point out you got a gear here and a gear here. And if you look at the chain, well, you can see it better probably on this side. There you go. See how it's 2 chains basically? Well, on the traditional style, as you can see, it's a single gear. In comparison, you have the double gear and a single gear. So that's how you can tell the difference. And you still have, this one has a dot, this one has a circle. Up here, you line up the circle, and you're in business. On the Chevy, that's what you do. Some of them are, one's up top, one's top here, one's top here. Most of the time, though, you'll find them, they're like this. I just wanted to show you guys the difference in the double roller and the single timing chain. So now it's time to put the cover on and get the oil pan on. While I'm building this engine, I wanted to do a quick thing to show people that do the Vortec head conversion on these old engines. If you look here, this is the valve side of the rocker arm on a Vortec style rocker. You can see how this keeps it from going like this while it's attached to the valve. And this is the back side, you see? Now, I'll show you the old style that you should not run if you do the conversion. This is the 882 head. Let me see if I can get some light on it there. As you can see, it's completely flat here, right here. So, what you got to do is you look, and if you look down in here, you can see how this has this slotted hole here. And this acts kind of like a guide for your push rod. Now, when you look at, this is where our engine's at, by the way. Got this off the 4.3, so it points our electronic thing here. Got the distributor timed. That's for the oil pressure sender. Gonna wiggle these. Oh. Valves unadjusted. I just have these on here to keep the dirt out. Alright. Okay. So if you look here, it has this round hole. So what will happen is these guys are going to want to walk like this, side to side, because they don't have that slotted hole that's tight on the push rod. So, as you can see, there it is. I'm running that style I showed you with the notch in it. That centers the rocker arm on the top of the valve, instead of having it centered in the back here. So that's something to be aware of when you're putting these together, because if you run the old rocker arms on the Vortec heads, you're going to have the valves going, or the rocker arms going like this, and you're going to have, they're going to go just like this, and you're going to have some serious issues. So just a quick little tip there. But as you can see, our engine's coming along really good. It's still filthy on the block side of it. We're going to tackle that in a little bit. We'll get it some nice Chevy orange back on it. But it's timed with the Lanati cam in it. Got the new lifters in it, push rods. Got the old valve covers I had kicking around. I'm going to clean them up. Make them nice and shiny, pretty again. Starting to put in all the sensors from the 4.3 in it, so that way all our gauges work on our dash. And that's where we are. So I'll go over to here. And here's our S10. Now we got the front diff out. And we got the pads off right here for the motor mounts. So we're going to put the Trans-DAP motor mount pads on. And then we put the block side on once the engine's bolted to the transmission, because I will tell you, it was absolutely miserable bolting this thing together, or unbolting it, I should say, from the 4.3. It was very difficult to get to this bolt here and this bolt here. So if you're tearing one of these apart, just be aware, because it's a nightmare. So that's about where we're at. We got some descaling to do up here and some painting. Get this all cleaned up while the engine's out, and then we can do the bottom side of it and everything where the suspension's going to go once we cut all this out and we start looking at putting in that front axle there. So that's when we'll change it up with that. But because most of these brackets, control arms, all that's going to get cut off anyways, so we're not too concerned about it. I had to undo the steering shaft here. That's going to have to go through the headers, and that's about it. I'm just going to finish up building that engine I got going on. It's almost there. Get it painted up nice. Get the valves adjusted. Now that the distributor's in on time, I can crank it over and set the valve lash and get all these millions of holes that GM put in their intake manifold plugged up, or vacuum ported, or coolant passaged, or whatever I need to do. And we should be in business. I got to take the original oil sender off and plug it. And now that I have the new one up here for the 4.3, other than that, conversion-wise, we're pretty much there. There's not much to it. It's pretty simple. This is a really easy setup, and this thing should be probably, I'm guessing, I don't know, I would say 350 horse or so. So it's going to be quite a jump from, I believe, the 160 that truck had originally. And it shows you what the junky L48 from the old vets can actually do with just a mild liven up. I mean, a set of heads and a cam and a nice intake with a better distributor, and we're there. I mean, it was pretty easy. So if anybody's redoing the Corvettes like we have and doesn't want to go the crazy route we did with the fuel-injected 6-liter and the 4L80E and all of that, then this is a good option for a decent street performer for sure. So I'm going to keep wrenching, and I got to clean up this disaster of a garage here and keep going. Well, here it is all cleaned up and painted. It came out real nice. It's looking good, and it's ready to go in. So let's get it in there. Well, we got our 4.3 out of the S10. That's sitting right here. Definitely had quite a few leaks to her. And we got our engine built, and it is now in the truck. It actually went in pretty easy. Got our conversion mounts there. We got some headers. Steering shaft goes through the headers. Started putting some of the sensors in. Got to change this to the vertical one so we can fit this sensor here, because I wanted to fit it into the head, but I couldn't get the clearance I'm looking for, so we're going to put it here. And the factory one, if you look in the 4.3, was vertical anyway, so it's not a biggie. This sender used to be here, but now we need to use this for our coolant line. It used to be in the back of the 4.3, but the back of this manifold doesn't have coolant. This is a different style, so that's our conversion for that. Distributor wise, all looks good. The air cleaner doesn't fit, it's just on here to keep any junk from getting in there. Here's a good view of those mounts. They work okay. They're definitely not easy to line up, but once they line up, it's no problem. The engine itself, as soon as I put it in and slid it to the right height, it went right on the dowel pins and connected right to the trans, so that was easy. As you can see, we got quite a bit of things to add on here now. We got our starter, this side of the header. We got to make all the exhaust system, clean these filthy valve covers, adjust the valves, put the accessories on, hook up the radiator and the tranny cooler lines, put oil in it. Trying to think what else. There's a few things for sure. Hook up our throttle linkage, hook up our transmission kickdown, TV cable, whatever you want to call it. Oh, and then on the truck end, we did get the front diff ripped out. It was crap and it was all trash anyway, so we just got rid of it. And we'll put the straight axle in. And to hold the wheel hubs together, we cut these ends off the axle shafts. And that way the wheel bearings don't decide to separate while we're driving it around in this shape before we change up the suspension. So we got to slide those in too. Yeah, this is the front axle we're putting in, the rear axle we're putting in, and there is the junk diff from the S10. So we're getting there. It's coming along good. Hopefully it should be running fairly soon. So I gotta start putting more parts on and get after it. Oh guys, I jumped ahead a little bit, but I showed you with the engine in the truck, I hope. I'm pretty sure I did. As you can see, I got the headers on. Got to apologize ahead because it is dark out, but it's one of the few times I have time to work on this thing. I got a few more vacuum lines to hook up. As for wiring, I got one temp sensor here, one here. I'm running the S10 accessories, so everything plugged right in, obviously. And on a 350, everything does line up. You can see even the crank pulley. Let me see if I can get some light in there. Yeah, everything lines up nice, so that's good. One issue is we have these TransDAP mounts down here, these engine mounts, and the engine sits way too high. Right here hits the hood, so I got to figure out something to do with that, which sucks. You know, you would think they would make it actually fit, but that's the way it goes in the aftermarket, unfortunately. This heater hose used to go back here on the 4.3. Instead, I'm putting it here. I'm just using the metal end, and I got to cut off a bracket on it. Then I'll just plug it in here. This heater hose went to the radiator, which is right here, right there. The radiator is just set in here to try to get some lengths for hoses. I'm going to reuse the S10 hoses. I just got to cut them down. And the thermostat housing I used off the 4.3 because I wanted the vertical one. The one I had on here originally went off to the side. I needed to use a plug here, and I wanted to use a sensor instead, so the gauges still work in the truck. Also, the other sensor back there is the oil pressure, so that's all good. I still have to wire, I believe it's the purple wire back on the distributor plug goes to the tach output on the HEI. That way the fuel pump doesn't get shut off by the computer. And the coil plug I have to cut off and extend the wire and run that to the cap as my coil positive for the new coil on the HEI. And that's about it for wiring, I believe. One thing that sucks that I haven't heard anybody complain about is when you go to set up your throttle and your TV cable. As you can see, the end of it is this, and this is like off like a four-wheeler or a dirt bike or something, a motorcycle. So that's nice. So I'm going to have a bracket, it should be here tomorrow or something, that goes on the stud here. And then this is your TV cable, so then you got to adjust it with this thing here to get the right depth. But I got to cut the end off, put the right end on, and then put it down here somewhere, so that way it gets pulled when you hit the throttle. I know the carburetor looks weird. It's a demon, a street demon, I believe it's called. I don't know. I had it and it worked great, so we're going to use it because that's the way the low buck, super cheap S10 job is going. This is the wiring for the distributor. Looks like the middle one, or I don't know. The one right here is the one I got to tap into. Yeah, there's a fuel pressure regulator. Got that going. I got to add a clamp here and a clamp on the carburetor. I might even throw another filter on it just to be safe so we don't plug up the carb. If this carb doesn't work out, I got another Holly. I think it's like a 650 kicking around that I can slap on. But then the throttle cable also has this stupid end on it. So that's a little bit easier to work with because the original throttle went way up in the front and then wrapped around like this and then went to here. So we got to take and put a loop in it, something similar to like down here, and then plug it in like this, and then have a bracket right here with the TV cable, and that way I can cut this end off, put the right end on it, and have it go right here. That way we have a working throttle. Trying to think what else is an issue. This worked out pretty good. Steering shaft through the header. You can see these are Patriot headers. They just happen to be the ones I could get. So far the fitment was good, so that's good. Got the Delco resistor plugs in for the Vortec heads. They are different than your old school heads, so remember that. Got to adjust the valve still. Clean up these valve covers because they're all nasty from sitting. The inside's totally clean because they were sitting on an engine. They were all nicely oiled, but the outside is kind of crappy, so I'll clean them up. Might as well. Most of my vacuum lines should be good. I got those set up over here. Right here. This one goes to where this little ball went. Right here. So I got to put the little ball back on. And then you got vacuums go right to the Corvette vacuum port here. We'll see if this needs a one-way valve or not. I'm not positive. I really didn't see a good diagram on this. So we'll figure it out. Here's a coil wire that I got to cut and extend over to here for the cap. Yeah, we're close. At least it'll be fired up and running. And I did get all the goodies for phase 3 when we do our big lift. Got our leaf springs. And then over here, I got to cut the shroud too. I'll show you that once I'm done cutting it. Those are shock hoops. And then this is our front cross member for the leaf springs with the rear shackle hangers. And then this is a tubular transmission cross member so the front drive shaft can fit. And got all those goodies from Sky's Off-Road Design. So that'll be phase 3, which will be pretty cool. And then we got to get onto this Corvette project here too. That's been collecting dust for a while. Finally got the solenoid wrapped right there, so I can finish up this transmission build. And that's about all we're doing. Air cleaner, that kind of fits. Same air cleaner we had on before. Especially if we can get this engine to come down a hair. Probably going to have to cut these mounts because this side hit when I tried to lower it before. And we got to worry about our tubes hitting on the frame and all that good stuff. So maybe after we start hacking the frame up for the leaf springs, it'll be easier to drop the engine down. We'll find out and keep you guys posted. Here's our S10 project with the 350 in it. Got one electric fan on, got to put the other one in. And all this mess of wires was here when I got the truck. I think it's from the plow or something. I gotta go through it and cut it out, but I just haven't felt like it yet because I've been busy putting this together. It should be ready to run. Still have to break in the camshaft. Obviously wire up those electric fans once they're installed. Got the headers in. Had to bash this one a little bit in the bottom and cut the top of that shock tower off, which is fine because it's all going in the trash eventually once I change out the suspension. So it's not a biggie. It's not going to harm anything just to drive it around a little bit like that. I'm not too concerned. As for the exhaust, got a great big length here, a straight pipe. For the exhaust, we got a nice long stretch of 2.5. Some bends I had kicking around from old systems. Collector flange. Some old tailpipes I had here. And these fake Flowmasters that I guess they're rumble mufflers they call them, which are actually made by MagnaFlow. So that's kind of cool, and they're still super cheap. So that's good. Goes with our theme here on this project. So now it's time to start fitting up the exhaust and making it. So stay tuned and we'll get it all whipped up. Well, we got the exhaust made and now it's time to break in our camshaft. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I know the video is a little bit long, but there's a lot to cover, and it's really awesome. We finally got this thing up and running, so now we get to have a little bit of fun with it, and then move on to phase 3. So please, guys, like, subscribe, and check out the rest of our builds. We're the Mass Mechanics.